Imagine this. It's 7:30 in the morning. The alarm goes off, not because your body is ready to wake up, but because your schedule demands it. You reach for your phone, scroll for a few seconds, maybe a few minutes, just enough to delay the reality of the day ahead. There's nothing dramatically wrong with your life. Your job is fine, your income is stable. From the outside, everything looks exactly how it's supposed to. And yet, there's this quiet feeling you can't fully explain. Not dissatisfaction, not burnout, just a subtle sense that you're repeating something over and over again, like you're moving forward but not really going anywhere. You get ready, go through the same motions, the same commute, the same conversations, days blend into each other, weeks pass faster than they should, and occasionally, usually late at night or during a quiet moment, a thought slips in. Is this it? Not in a dramatic way, not as a crisis, just as a question. A quiet observation that something about this system feels closed, predictable, structured in a way that leaves very little room for deviation. But then you notice something strange. Not everyone around you is moving the same way. There are people, not many, but enough to notice, who seem slightly detached from this rhythm. They still work, they still earn, but they don't carry the same urgency, the same pressure. Their decisions feel different, less reactive, more intentional. And the most interesting part, they never announce it. They don't say they've escaped, they don't make it obvious, but something about their life feels lighter, more controlled, like they stepped out of something invisible. And that's where the curiosity begins, because escaping the rat race is not usually a loud decision. It's not a dramatic exit. It doesn't happen in a single moment. It's quiet, gradual, almost invisible from the outside. And more than anything, it starts in the mind, not in the bank account. At first, it looks like a small shift in thinking. Instead of asking, how do I earn more, they start asking, what is this earning costing me? Time, energy, attention. They begin to see income not just as a number, but as an exchange. And once you start seeing money as an exchange of life, not just effort, your perspective changes. Because most people are focused on increasing income within the same structure, climbing higher, earning more, upgrading their lifestyle. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the people who quietly step out begin questioning the structure itself. Not just how much they earn, but how their earning is designed, whether it scales with their time or separates from it. And that question creates distance, not from work, but from the default path. They stop assuming that the only way forward is upward, and instead they start looking sideways, exploring options that don't immediately look impressive but feel different, more flexible, more aligned. Around this point, it's worth pausing for a moment. If you're watching this and recognizing that the biggest changes in life often start with a shift in perspective, you're on Prime Gorilla, where we break down the deeper psychology behind money, freedom, and modern life. If this is making you think differently, take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who feels stuck in repetition, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because once you zoom out further, you realize something important. The rat race is not just about working hard, it's about working within a system that continuously expands with you. You earn more, you spend more. You grow, your responsibilities grow. Your lifestyle adjusts to your income, and suddenly maintaining your life requires the same system you once thought would free you. And this is where psychology becomes the key factor, because the system doesn't trap people physically, it traps them through expectations, through normalization, through the quiet belief that this is just how life works. And once that belief settles in, it becomes difficult to question it. But the people who escape don't accept that belief completely. They notice the pattern, the constant exchange of time for money, the gradual increase in commitments, the shrinking margin for flexibility. And instead of accelerating within that system, they start reducing their dependence on it. Not dramatically, not all at once, but intentionally. They begin creating small gaps, small sources of income that are not tied directly to their time, small reductions in expenses that don't reduce their quality of life but increase their flexibility.
And over time, those small changes compound into something much larger, not just financially, but psychologically. Because once you experience even a small amount of independence from the system, your relationship with it changes. You no longer feel fully dependent, fully controlled, and that shift creates a new kind of confidence, not loud, not visible, but deeply rooted.
At this stage, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. The way you think about time changes. Before, time was structured around obligations, work hours, deadlines, schedules that defined your day. But now, even slightly, you begin to see time as something you can shape. Not completely, not yet, but enough to notice the difference. And that awareness changes your decisions. You become more selective, not just about how you spend money, but how you spend your energy. You start asking questions most people don't ask. Is this worth my time? What does this commitment actually give me? Am I choosing this or just continuing it? And these questions slowly pull you further away from automatic living. At the same time, something else begins to fade. The need to constantly compare, because comparison is one of the strongest forces keeping people in the rat race. You look at others, their progress, their lifestyle, their visible success, and your internal benchmark shifts. Without realizing it, you start chasing not what you want, but what you see. But the people who quietly escape begin to detach from that, not completely, but enough to reduce its influence. They stop measuring progress based on external signals and start measuring it based on internal alignment. How much control they have, how much flexibility they've created, how sustainable their life feels. And that shift is difficult at first, because external validation is immediate, visible, while internal alignment is quieter, slower. But over time, it becomes more stable, less dependent on circumstances. This is also where financial behavior changes in a deeper way. Spending becomes more intentional, not restricted, not minimal, but aligned. They're not trying to look rich, they're trying to stay free. And that changes how money flows through their life. They begin to value margin more than status, space more than upgrades, because they understand something most people overlook, that every fixed expense is not just a cost, it's a commitment, a claim on future time. And reducing those claims increases freedom. But this path is not easy, not because it's complicated, but because it goes against the default. It requires saying no when saying yes is expected. It requires patience when everything around you promotes speed. And most importantly, it requires clarity in a world full of noise. Because the system is constantly offering upgrades, better titles, better salaries, better lifestyles, and each one looks like progress. But without clarity, it's easy to accept opportunities that quietly increase your dependence instead of reducing it. The people who escape learn to filter these opportunities differently, not based on how impressive they look, but based on what they demand in return: time, energy, flexibility. And over time, that filtering creates a life that is structured around their priorities, not just their opportunities. Eventually, you reach a point where the difference becomes undeniable, not in a dramatic way, not as a sudden transformation, but as a quiet realization. Your life feels different, lighter, not because you're doing less, but because you're carrying less unnecessary weight. You still work, you still earn, but the pressure feels different, because your survival is no longer tied to a single structure. You've created options, and options create freedom. And this is the final psychological shift. You stop seeing money as the goal and start seeing it as a tool, a way to buy back time, to create space, to design your life more intentionally. And once you see money that way, your entire approach changes. You no longer chase income for the sake of it. You build it in ways that support the life you want. You prioritize sustainability over speed, control over appearance. And most importantly, you stop waiting for a moment where you escape. because you realize something important. There is no single exit, no final step where everything changes at once. Escaping the rat race is not a destination, it's a direction. It's a series of small decisions repeated over time that gradually reduce your dependence on systems that don't fully serve you. And because it's gradual, it often goes unnoticed by others, but you feel it. In how you spend your mornings, in how you make decisions, in how you think about the future. And that leads to the final perspective shift. The people who escape the rat race are not the ones who run the fastest. They are the ones who stop running in the same direction as everyone else, who step off the path, not to do nothing, but to choose differently. Because in the end, freedom is not about having more. It's about needing less from systems you don't control. Outro. If this video made you rethink what it really means to escape the rat race, then you're already thinking differently than most people. This is Prime Gorilla, where we go beyond surface-level advice and explore the deeper systems shaping your life. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because sometimes the biggest change isn't what you achieve, it's what you quietly walk away from.